Hey, Vikings fans, Gabe Henderson here with another great episode of Training Camp Memories presented by US Bank. There are many great players that have left their marks in the game of football, but none more important than these two legends. 16 combined Pro Bowls, 2 gold jackets. John Randle and Warren Moon transcended the NFL while creating a legacy both on and off the field. Our own Pete Bercich sat down with these two Hall of Famers to give us a glimpse of how they use training camp to develop skills for the season at hand.
Thanks, Gabe. And it's my honor to interview two teammates today, both of which have made it into the National Football League Hall of Fame. Yes, that's where the gods of football are enshrined. I've got with me Warren Moon and John Randle. And Warren Moon, we're all about training camp right now. You spent some time in Canada. You spent nearly 10 years down with the Houston Oilers. What was it like for you in 1994 when you came to Mankato, Minnesota for your first training camp with the Minnesota Vikings?
You know, Pete, I went through 23 training camps.
Oh, my God.
in 2 countries. So I have a lot of experience in training camps. And by the end of it, you can imagine how I felt about training camp when it got down to those last 4 or 5 years of me playing the game. And when I came to Mankato, it was just another college dorm that I was just didn't want to have to enter, because that's what training camp usually meant. You were going to some small college somewhere in some state, and you were going to be in some college dorm room with some little college dorm beds, and you were going to eat college dorm food, and you were going to go to the college dorm bathroom. And at my age, I was like, when I came to Minnesota, I was 36, 37 years old. So I had 4 kids at that time. I mean, I was a grown man, and now all of a sudden I got to go sleep in a college dorm at 37 years old. It's just not something that I was happy about. So what I tried to do, Pete, I tried to make my room the most comfortable first-class penthouse suite that I could possibly make it, because that's where you're going to spend the majority of your time when you're not practicing or in a meeting. You want to make sure you have a good night's sleep. You want to make sure your room is cool. You want to make sure you have a refrigerator. I had everything in my room. I rented a bed. I rented a queen-size bed. I didn't have those little dorm rooms. I had a bed brought in for me. So I made my room as close to a hotel room as I could possibly make it, because that's where I spent the majority of my time when I wasn't playing football.
I mean, what was that like when you show up, you're 35, 34 years old, and like
36,
I'm 27
years old.
Yeah, and I figure my first camp, I'm 22, 23. What's it like having to deal with? I mean, you like to think you're an adult, but there's really still kids, aren't they?
Yeah, you're fresh out of those. Like you were fresh out of college, so dorm rooms probably weren't that big a change for you or some of the other guys.
Right.
Maybe you had lived in an apartment your last couple of years in college or something like that, but still, you knew what the dorm life was about. I had been living the pretty first-class life at that time. I'd been the highest-paid player in the NFL 2 times during that time. And when you go to training camp, it is just a humbling experience that's what it's all about. You're going there to buckle down. You're going down there to get serious about getting ready for the season. It's not going to be nice. It's not going to be comfortable, but I tried to make it as comfortable as I possibly could, like I said, for the time that I was going to be there. I understood what I had to get done in training camp, because training camp is important. It's not like today where they're not going to even have training camp this year, and then and then they've cut back on training camp so much now, where there's only 1-a-day practices and maybe a walkthrough or something like that. These young guys have no idea what we went through during training camp, where we had 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days, and guys were in padded practices twice a day sometimes. So to endure through those 2-a-days and those 2 practices a day and those long days, it got you mentally tough, and it got your body kind of callous to get ready for the season. Not so much for the quarterbacks, but definitely for a guy like Johnny Randle, with hitting guys and getting themselves ready for the physicality that they were going to face during the season.
Now, Johnny, we've had a series of these thus far, and everybody that we've talked to remembers you and then remembers your tempo. What possible mentality did you use or bring with you down to training camp to make sure that you were as good as and as ready as you could be going into the season?
Well, for me, Pete, training camp was like a day growing up in Texas with the hot weather. You're in these small beds, you're uncomfortable. And because for me, for a defensive lineman, training camp is so different from Warren Moon. The quarterbacks no one's touching them. And so for the defensive lineman, I can remember my first year coming to training camp where there were guys who would come from the practice field with their pants on and go to the cafeteria at Gage Hall and eat. And they would go to their room with their training camp pants on. And I'm like, asking guys why you're doing that. And they were like, hey, I don't want to lose my mentality coming from the field to go to lunch. So for me, I wanted to be the guy who just set the tempo. I wanted to go into it saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to be ready. Because for a defensive lineman in training camp, like Warren was saying, you want to build up the calluses. You want to be tough. You want to be the guy that's out there in front. I wanted to experience everything head on first. I want to be the first guy to get that hit because training camp is not comfortable. But it's training camp is like Groundhog Day. Yeah. You're gonna do it over and over again. And so I always made myself be uncomfortable. I had the small beds. I didn't have an AC. I had a small little clip-on fan that I connected next to my bed to get a nice little breeze because I didn't want to get comfortable because you get comfortable, then you kind of, as I said, play soft or you got relaxed. So because in the season, you're going to be already banged up. So I wanted to get banged up in training camp so that when the season came along, it was a lot easier than training camp. I remember guys having refrigerators. They had all these nice luxuries. My biggest luxury was flip-flops because for me, Gage Hall, when you walked in that bathroom, I saw things that I'm still scarred by. You walk in there and there are like 8 stalls and you going through the stalls because there's only one roll of toilet paper for those 8 stalls.
Oh.
And so I got to the point where I had my own toilet paper roll in my room. I did that. So flip-flops, man. And you walk on that floor, it was wet. You know it.
Yeah.
The floor was wet. It was some guys didn't realize how to flush a toilet. Some guys just did whatever they wanted in that bathroom. So for me, flip-flops, not much clothing. I kind of kept it simple. I was totally opposite of Warren Moon, not having a big bed, having a small bed. And I always kept my door closed because
you were
just
just cheap, Johnny. You didn't want to pay for a bed. That's the reason why you didn't have a bed. You wasn't making a lot of money at the time I got there.
No.
That's probably why you didn't want the big bed. If you could have afforded one, you'd have had one.
No, hey, for a defensive guy, you think about it, you getting that nice, comfortable bed. You wouldn't want to get up. You want to just sleep. And for me, I didn't want to be comfortable. I wanted to be ready because, like I was saying, it was Groundhog Day over and over again.
Warren, with training camp, having been through so many, being a quarterback, you hear a couple themes all the time. One is the defense is usually ahead of the offense, and the offense has to build the chemistry, so to speak. And a lot of that's the offensive linemen working together as a group. But tell me about the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and what is that chemistry about? How long does it take to build? And is that going to be a challenge, you think, this year for offenses when this season starts?
Yeah, for me coming in from Houston, that was really the first time. Well, I got a chance to come in for a couple of mini camps before training camp. So I started to create some type of chemistry with our receivers during that time. But definitely training camp is a time where you really get a chance to get a lot of reps with all your wide receivers. And even though we're not hitting, Johnny said it's a little bit easier for us. the hard part for us as quarterbacks is we're throwing a ton of balls every day. You got those wide receiver lines with probably 12 guys on each side running routes, and it's only maybe 2 or 3 quarterbacks where one quarterback might be down with the running game and the rest of them are just throwing route after route after route. So your arm can really get burned out really quickly. But that's where you start to create that chemistry too with your wide receivers. And that's why I think I was able to have such great success with Chris Carter in my first year there, where he caught 122 passes that first year and set a new single season record, is because we got off to a really good start in minicamp, and then also we carried that over into training camp.
So how do you build that chemistry? Is that a verbal thing where he says, if I do this, I see this?
It's physical on the field. It's verbal on the field, talking about certain ways you're going to run a route against certain coverages. And then it's in the film room as well. When we watch tape of our practices every day after practice and at night, we're talking all the time about, what do you like to do here? Why did you do this here? And it's the communication that's going to make that chemistry come as fast as possible. So we had good chemistry because you know how Chris is. Chris likes to talk.
No.
And he wants to.
No, yeah.
No.
Really?
And he wants the football, and he's going to tell you every route that he's open on, and he'll tell you even the routes he's not open on. Throw the ball anyway, and I'll make the catch. So that's the type of receiver you like to have.
I was just going to ask you that. That's kind of what you want from that group. Johnny, the thing that, talking about camp, the thing you mentioned was not letting yourself get comfortable. Well, one thing is for sure is you made everybody around you uncomfortable as well.
I won't be denied.
Is there anybody on the offense that gave you pause, so to speak, or a guy that you look forward to going up against? Because we did have Randall McDaniel on, and your name came up, and that was always an epic battle.
Yes, but because Randall, for me, Randall was so unique. First of all, Randall, one of his unique things was his stance was one. You couldn't tell if he was pulling or if he was just pass blocking. But he also had a thing where he reminded me of like a scorpion, and I hate scorpions. And so going against Randall was like I'm going against a scorpion, man. His hand was all back, but going against him in practice, dude, it was very, very difficult. And I used to just say to myself, if I can beat Randall at least one time out of 20, then I'm having a pretty good camp. And I can remember my first time going against Randall I think it's my first year, and Paul Wiggins was my defensive line coach. And Paul Wiggins comes over to me, and I got my head down. He goes, "You can't beat Randall McDaniel." He goes, "I don't think you're doing anything." And I go, "Well, can I try against one of the other guys?" And I go against one of the other guys. I think it was like Tim Irwin, and I just flipped Tim Irwin over, flipped him over the side, flipped another guy, and Paul Wiggins comes back to me and goes, "Keep going against Randall. He basically said, keep getting beat up against Randall McDaniel." And he just keep going against him. I'm like, okay, but I hated going against Randall, but at the same time, it made me a better player because I would try things against Randall, and if I worked just a little bit, I knew I had a better shot in the game against other guys because there was nobody as quick as Randall McDaniel. He ran a 4.5 40.
Yeah.
He was like 260, 265. And the guy came to practice every day ready to go. And for me, it was just an honor to have somebody that great on the other side of the ball that prepared me every week to play in the games.
For you, Warren, in the same line, in all your years of training camp, was there a coach or a drill or a specific thing that you did that made you a much better quarterback?
There wasn't one particular drill. No, I think all the different routes that you go against in the passing tree, the more you do those routes, the better you're going to get at them, and the better you start to learn the receiver's body language, because everybody runs routes differently. Everybody's a little bit different in size as far as the way they come out with their stride, or they might be taller or shorter. So depending on, who the player is, you had to get used to who that guy was. And me coming in from Houston, having been with those same guys for a number of years, I had to learn very quickly the new set of receivers that I had in Minnesota, that first training camp. And that was the main thing I wanted to do, is try and learn all those guys' body language, when I think they're going to come out of a route, because I love to be able to anticipate and get the ball out of my hands before a guy comes out of his route. So knowing when he's going to make that break is very, very important for anticipating and getting the ball in those windows that you want to get the ball into. And then again, the more reps you have in doing that, the better you're going to get at knowing those guys. Even though every guy in those lines aren't going to be there, you kind of knew who the guys were that were going to make the team, given one or two guys. So those are the guys you really focused on the most, as opposed to some of the other guys that you didn't think were going to have a chance to make the team.
One thing that was so unique about the game of actually being with Warren Moon, I can remember when Warren first got there, we were playing some serious game, man, and Warren called a timeout. And everybody's like, we're all getting up off the benches, walking up, trying to see what Warren's coming to Denny Green to talk about. He walks up to Denny and he's doing, he's messing with his mouth. He keeps doing like this. So we come back and I walk over to Freddie. I'm going, what's wrong? What does he need? Freddie goes, he just wanted some chapstick.
Actually, I came over because I needed a nail file, because if my fingernail is the right length, I can really make the ball spin. So I needed some chapstick, and I also needed a nail file to file my nail down, because I had cracked it during the game. So you didn't know that, did you, Johnny?
No, I didn't know that. Wow.
So Warren, you bring up the nails, right? That's something that even, for me, I've been around the game for a long, long time. I never heard anyone talk about the nails. But talk about the importance when you get to camp about that. I mean, every quarterback, I assume, likes their footballs one way or another. You like your pads one way or another. What did you like, and who helped you out with that?
I wasn't that big on the balls. The balls didn't bother me. I could throw any type of football. I like my balls to be worn out, though. I didn't like them to be brand new. That's the only thing. I didn't like them out of the box. I liked them to be at least 1 or 2 days, worn out before I started using them, especially in a game. But other than that, I let the punters and the kickers do what they needed to do with the balls to get them ready for them to be able to punt and kick them. Otherwise, I could throw anything you gave me as long as it wasn't brand new out of the box. So they tended to be a little bit slippery, because they had that some type of residue on the ball that when they first come out of the box, it has to be rubbed off of it. Other than that, I didn't really care about the ball. But Dennis Ryan was the guy that got me ready. He had my pads. I had pads that I brought from Houston that I had been wearing my whole career. Some Douglas pads that he had them refurbished and everything every year. So he had those ready to work for me. And those guys play such an important part in getting you ready for the season and each and every week in the games.
D. Ryan was the head equipment guy. He was the ball marker. He was playing, and he was snapping the ball in scout team. He'd have 2 footballs underneath his shirt, and he was doing 3 jobs at once.
Last question for both you guys, and then we'll wrap it up. But Warren, when you had some free time down at training camp or away from football, what did you do to get your mind refreshed, to get away from the game for a little bit?
Man, I hightailed up to Minneapolis.
You were part of it, and we've had that conversation.
As fast as I could get there, and I would check in a hotel, and I would get me a regular room and a regular bed. Man, I'm telling you, that was my comfort zone. I was all about comfort at that particular stage of my career. But I would go. They had a mall there in Mankato. I would go there and walk around a little bit, maybe buy me a ice cream or something, and walk around just to see normal people. And because when you're with your teammates each and every day, that's all you see. You see a bunch of hot, sweaty guys in uniform. You see a bunch of guys in short pants and flip-flops, as Johnny talked about, or you see a bunch of naked guys in the shower. But all you're seeing is a bunch of guys all the dang time. So I just wanted to see some normal people sometime. So I would just go to the mall and walk around and just try and act like I was normal as possible, just to act like I was a regular human being, you know, because I felt like we were sometimes a you know, an animal in the circus or something like that. Especially when we take that walk from the locker room over to the practice field, and everybody's taking pictures of you and gawking at you and all of that, and you're signing autographs and doing all that type of stuff. So whenever I could feel like I was just normal, I wanted to do something that was normal, and that's what I tried to do. If I wasn't doing that, I was in my room trying to get a nap.
Johnny?
For me, it was much simpler than that. I would actually go watch soap operas on television. I would watch The Young and the Restless with Eddie McDaniel.
Well, we did that every day.
And yeah, but we didn't have much time. By the time we got over there, some of the shows was off. But for me, that was watching those soap operas kind of took me away from everything. And I was going to my room, watching soap operas, and it really just relaxed me, took me away from, it's like Warren was saying, the same old stuff of walking to Gage Hall, going back, like I said, people taking pictures, and just to break up that monotonous of the same routine. It really took me away.
Johnny, great seeing you as always, man. I had great respect for that guy when I came into the Minnesota Vikings, and he turned into one of the best defensive linemen to ever play the game by the time I left there, and then years afterwards. So just really proud of the progress he made during the time I was there, and the progress he made after I left.
Thank you, Warren. Me growing up in Texas, Warren Moon was one of my heroes, and to all of a sudden get the chance to play with Warren, man, it was a kid's dream, and to know him and have him be a dear friend. I feel as though I'm one of the luckiest guys in the world, and it was such a pleasure to see him go from the Houston Oilers to being the Minnesota Vikings. Man, I remember when he first got there, I called my friends back home and go, I'm playing with Warren Moon.
Exactly right.
Warren Moon. I mean, the number one Warren Moon. And so, man, what a pleasure and what an honor.
Hey, Pete.
Warren.
Pete, can I tell you one more thing about Johnny when I first met him? Because he was a little annoying to me when I first met him.
Absolutely.
You know how you have practice and then you have walkthrough, right? Well, in walkthrough, everybody's walking. People have on their we wore helmets in walkthrough, but we were in shorts and everything was walking. Like we're just walking through our offensive plays, and the defense is going to give us a look, and then vice versa for the defense for the offense. Well, Johnny would be on the defense sometimes on the look team, and I would drop back to pass on a play in a walkthrough, and here comes Johnny doing a swim move on the offensive guard, and then he comes by and taps me on the shoulder and says, sack, like he's getting sacks and walkthrough. I'm like, what is wrong with this dude? Is that all he thinks about all the time is freaking sacks? So he annoyed me at first, but then I got a chance to get to know that that's the way Johnny was. He was always thinking about getting to the quarterback, no matter if it was a walkthrough, no matter if it was a live drill, or no matter if it was a Saturday or whatever it was. Johnny was thinking about getting to the quarterback. So I learned that over the period of time. But when I first got there, that was the most annoying thing to me, that he would come by me and tap me on the shoulder and say, sack, like he beat somebody in a walkthrough.
Sorry about that, Warren. I'm so sorry.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you sharing these training camp memories, and best of luck, and hope to see both you guys during the season. Warren, when we go out to Seattle, and Johnny, I'm sure you're going to be around quite a bit.